Welcome to the Heart-Led Business Show, where compassion meets commerce and leaders lead with love. Join your host, Tom Jacobs, as he delves into the insightful conversations with visionary business leaders who defy the status quo, putting humanity first and profit second. From heartfelt strategies to inspiring stories, this podcast is your compass in the world of conscious capitalism. So buckle up and let your heart guide your business journey.
Ladies and gents, brace your senses for a show that's both hearty and health-filled. We're pumped to present Mandy Patterson, the wellness wizard with a heart-led hustle. Mandy's got a medley of big, bountiful titles, from a yoga instructor to a holistic health honcho. She's spreading love through her digital domain, turning health hurdles into hallelujah moments. So sit tight as we go deep into her journey on today's potent episode of the Heart-Led Business Show. Mandy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Glad you're here. And you know, the first question I always like to kind of set the tone for the show is, what's your definition of a heart-led business?
Yeah, I think that I had to ponder that a bit, but I really believe that a heart-led business is getting up every single morning, feet on the ground, boots on the ground, and serving people with passion and wisdom and empathy. That is my definition of a heart-led business.
So really putting the people first and thinking about what their needs are, what their desires are, and just thinking about that before potentially thinking about ourselves.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your heart-led business and what inspired you to start it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a pretty diverse background. So I currently am a naturopathic doctor of functional medicine, and I am in the arena of infertility. So what kind of fueled my passion for my business and what I do is 22 years ago, my son was born 3 months premature. He was a 1 pound, 14 ounce preemie. I almost died. I had pregnancy induced hypertension, but it had progressed to the point of I was in kidney and liver failure when I walked into the hospital, and they said, you know, you need to get your stuff in order. You're probably not going to survive this, and your son probably won't. And that, being really young, because I was 23 then, right? I was an occupational therapist before I became a naturopathic doctor. So that was kind of the pivot in my life when I realized that my voice mattered, that, you know, I was the only one that could advocate for myself, that had my best interest in mind. And I really had to use my voice in even uncomfortable situations to communicate, you know, what my needs were and like what my son's needs were. So he's a healthy 22-year-old today, but it was many challenges, even health challenges over the years that, you know, I have 6 children, actually 22 down to 11, 3 boys and 3 girls. You know, it's been a lot mothering and doctoring and doing all of those things. And so it was about, I would say 4 years ago when I started getting involved in more of the holistic arena, the alternative arena, and just really starting to learn. And I have always practiced as an occupational therapist in some form or capacity, because I would just be, they call it PRN, where they would just call me in if I could do it. And I was juggling my own business with it. But during COVID was when I really pivoted, and I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore, because I feel like I can serve people in a much greater capacity as an online business owner and really meet their needs. So that's kind of been my journey and my story.
Oh, nice. Awesome. And so obviously now you're focused on fertility, and that was primarily because of the issue that you went through with your son?
Yeah. So that was one of it. Because after, when I came on the other side of that, doctors told me, you're probably never going to have any more children. And I was like, who are you to tell me that I'm not going to have any more kids? I figure this out.
Boy, did you show them wrong, right? You had 5 more.
Exactly. So, you know, that then was really hard for me to take, because I was like, and, you know, I'm that type of person that one door closes, another door opens. And I was like, well, if I'm going to adopt some kids, but I'm going to figure out my health now and get my things in order, because clearly there were things that were setting me up to be ill during that first pregnancy. So yes, so I had some very close friends, and like 3 of my sister-in-laws dealt with infertility. And I have just, as a mom, it's been a tremendous joy raising children. It is my passion. It is like all that I do, you know, in addition to my business. And I want other families to experience that. And, infertility has been on the rise for many years. So that's kind of how I got into that hormone fertility arena and just kind of went full in and was like, I'm going to serve, I'm going to help people from a natural perspective, help them advocate for themselves, educate, empower, equip them with the tools that they need to be the healthiest versions of themselves.
Yeah, that's really great. And I hear that quite a bit, actually. A lot of practitioners go into their area of practice because of a personal issue that they went through themselves as well. Do you find
Absolutely.
that you have history with that it makes you a better practitioner?
I think so, because I think, and I've seen it in multiple different angles as a practitioner that was an occupational therapist on the front lines. Like I worked in the hospital, I worked in the ICU, outpatient, I worked in NICU. Over the years, I did home health. So I have a very broad lens into which I saw the system and how the system treated people. And it just, as an empath, it was really hard for me. And so that, in addition to being a mom, because my kids have had health issues over the years and we've had to go to extremes. Even last year, my son, he's 5 hours from us. He goes to school in Chicago, and I got a phone call that he was in the hospital, was having abdominal issues. And he's the one that was the preemie that had 2 bowel surgeries. And this had happened repeatedly. And I sitting up at Northwestern Hospital in Chicago at 11:30 at night. And I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. If I can do anything I can to prevent him from having to go in for a surgery, then I'm going to do it. And so literally within 4 weeks, I had him down in Gainesville, Florida, and we were doing a treatment program that focuses on people that have bowel adhesions from past surgeries. They also work with people that have infertility, that have endometriosis. And so we did a week-long program to get him on track.
That's amazing. And that history brings forward, you're an empath, and you've had the family history as well. I mean, that you've got to have so much empathy for the patients that come to you for the fertility. How do you approach that with them?
Yeah. I think the longer I've been in practice and the more people that I've seen, what I've really realized is people simply just need a practitioner to listen to them, to sit with them, walk through things with them. And it reminds me of the book. There's a book out that's called The Quiet Leader, and it was several years ago that it was published, but he really just alludes to, from a compassion side of things, just sitting and listening can be so therapeutic, right?
Yeah. And especially in today's the insurance sick model, I can't say health model, or sick insurance that we have.
Right.
The doctors can't afford to spend more than five minutes with a patient. Of course, we're not being heard. And so having somebody that can sit down, and how long are typically your consultations with patients?
Yeah. So I usually do an initial 30-minute consultation with them just to get to know them better, what their health goals are, what their challenges are, what they're looking for in a practitioner. And, I frame it around, the work that I do is an investment, right? I am really aiming for transformation, and transformation doesn't happen overnight. And functional and naturopathic medicine is not a quick fix. It's not a quick pill. So, and some people are still in that mindset, right? That you just go to the doctor, you spend 15 minutes with them, they hand you a pill and it makes you better. But I think, society is waking up, even, post COVID, even more so, to understand that, the system doesn't have our best interests in mind, and the pills don't fix things, and that we have to work on our own internal terrain. And when I talk about that, I mean mind, body, and spirit, to get to a better place of healing. My initial session's a 30-minute. After that, I usually so my one-to-ones, I spend 2 times a month with them for at least 50 minutes. Checking in, I usually have a suggested protocol for them that we're reviewing. I'm seeing where their hangups are and roadblocks and such. But I also do group coaching as well. And so my fertility program called Positivity Fertility, I lead that with my partner, Dr. Jeannie Sheffley. That is every week. They get support to us in coaching sessions. And then we also have an online portal set up where they can message us, and, it's a community we're building.
Oh, wow. That's really great. So shifting to the business side. So you'd mentioned that you're an empath. And what I've found, and I am as well, that a lot of empaths that go into health and wellness businesses tend to struggle with charging the worth that you are worth. So tell me kind of how you approach that, how you maybe the struggle that you went through and some challenges, in the early days of having your business.
Absolutely. You are so right. It is a challenge. And it was really hard for me to shift my mindset around that several years ago. But I realized that in order to take good care of myself so I can be the best version of myself as a practitioner for people, that I do have to charge higher prices. However, I have an incredible amount of content, free content out there for people. I run the Gutsy Fertility podcast. We have an extensive blog and recipes on my website. And so, if people are just kind of getting in my world and trying to understand how I approach things from a health and wellness side, I'll direct them that way if, money's an issue. However, I think offering smaller options for people for them to get into your world, such as like mini courses, which we do have, and like smaller things. Like I actually offer like a lab review for people. It's kind
Oh,
of an
nice.
intro where I'll look at their conventional labs. I'll explain to them what that means from a functional lens, which is very different.
Yep.
As I always tell people, the conventional lens has a much broader reference range than the what would be considered a healthy range. So, people that are inside the conventional range are not necessarily healthy. They're just
Right.
average. So that's an important piece. But then I also offer like even a package where I do some testing for them, like hair tissue mineral analysis and food sensitivity testing, and kind of put together a protocol for them through that. And they get email access to me through that. And then I have larger tiered programs that are, 3 months, 6 months, up to 12 months based upon what they've got going on. I'll tell them, this is what the length of time that I think you'll need coaching support from me to take care of this problem. So for instance, I actually had a mom reach out to me a couple days ago. 18-year-old her daughter has a lot of acne going on and other things. She's an 18-year-old. So she's not going to need year-long coaching program, right?
Right.
But that initial testing, I can really put together a solid plan for her to really reverse the acne and get to the root cause of her hormone challenges.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great. I think that's really smart, having different options for different price points, because not everybody can afford that one-on-one. And I think that the whole mindset of, sick insurance pays for everything. Well, no, it pays for when you're sick. And, hopefully we
Yes.
don't get to that level where we need to use it, so it's interesting.
Well, and that's how I frame it to people. Interestingly enough, I was learning about even an IVF clinic on what they're charging for like the average couple that walks through the door. It's literally $75,000. They can
Wow.
bet that they're going to make that much money off those individuals because they know that IVF usually takes multiple rounds, and each IVF round being approximately $20,000 to $30,000. So it's a business model, right? And so
Yep.
when I'm talking to people about that, I'm like, you know what? Sometimes people do have to go to the IVF path, and that's perfectly fine. But what I'm doing is optimizing your body for a healthy baby, like in healthy generations to come. It's a very different mindset, right?
Yeah.
So, and then two, framing it for people around, well, if you're having infertility issues now, there's usually root cause issues for that, or there always is root
Yeah.
cause issues for that. And that could cause you health issues down the road, right? So do you want to take care of it now, or do you want to take care of it later when it's going to be more painful?
Yeah. Well, and
You know?
IVF is almost just a Band-Aid solution. It's not really fixing the underlying issue of the infertility necessarily.
Absolutely. Or insurance is paying for the IVF
No.
too. So that's another allure for,
Yeah.
people to say, oh, I'm just going to go that path. It's the easier path, but is it the best path?
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So early on in your career, like walk me through kind of some of those challenges that you faced where you were like, I have to charge more or else I'm going to go crazy, or whatever the situation was for you.
Yeah, I'll say that pivot came back about 4 years ago. So I actually went
Recent.
online in 2017 because my husband and I moved our 6 kids to Australia, and we lived there for 2 years. And so at that point, I had already gone into the online space and just got incredibly busy and was like, oh my goodness, like I'm just, doing hours for dollars here. And like, I really have to be protective of my own health because I had my own health crises before and it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
So that's when I really started. And I've worked with some different mentors and coaches. And, what I think as an empath, the hard thing for me was I really want quality transformational healthcare to be available to all. So that's been
Yep.
like the rub and the struggle for me. But I started to realize like if I'm protective of myself and if I'm staying in a high vibrant state, then those I'm going to attract higher vibe people and
Yep.
people that are, able to pay more financially. And then that frees me up to like do scholarships or, whatever it looks like for people that I feel like they're like want to get started and they can't afford it. Then I figure it out. I help them figure it out. Like if that's an
Yeah.
extended payment plan, or, walking them through how they can.
And I like that, that you're offering scholarships. And I was speaking to a practitioner yesterday who was saying, the more money that you make in your practice, the more pro bono stuff that you can do and the more charities that you can support and more people that you can help. So it doesn't do anybody good if one, you're stressed out all the time about money and where's the next, dollar coming from.
Yeah. And I think like I've had to like really build up my mindset around, I have a very deep faith as a Christian and I firmly believe God brings the people that need help and that need, they might just, and it might even look like a 30-minute session with me and they don't end up working with me, but at least I can impart some wisdom to them and give them some little seeds to like, that are planted that they can think about. Like I just had a mom come to me 2 days ago that's got stage 4 cancer and they've given up on her with chemo and radiation and she has 6 children.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I kind of walked her through this is some different options we can work together. And she came back and she was like, we just can't afford it right now. And I was like, look, I'm willing to work with you around a payment plan, but the very least, I would at least do some initial testing so you can have a protocol to get going, and just trying to move people in that like direction, especially when I know it's a life or death situation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so great of you. Yeah.
And if I hadn't, like, I feel like if I hadn't had my own near life or death in death experience, like, I wouldn't have maybe the capacity to really like speak up and like really try to nudge and gently push them in that direction to understand you've got to figure this out right now. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm willing to help you figure it out. I will do whatever it takes to support you. But,
Yeah.
and I did give her some resources, to
Yeah.
at least start, I said, check out some of this research. I've seen some miraculous things with these protocols and things, so
And it's a balance as well because like you may want to help somebody and do it for free, but then again, will they put the value on it and actually do the work necessary to get the result if it's free?
exactly. And I think when you psychologically think about that, I even know for myself when something's given to me free, it's not going to hold the same value and I'm not going to put in the amount of work that needs to be done, to get there. And so there is an association between, a payment and paying a significant amount of money to get a result, right?
Yeah. And especially if there's a partial scholarship involved, there's still skin in the game in terms of a real investment from the patient point of view to get those results to happen for sure.
Yeah. Actually, just discussing a scholarship yesterday with a past client that would like to do some testing. And I'm like, why don't we talk through this? And I think, like, as business owners, like, we're gifted in that because we can present different options to people and really, like, dig down and, like, help them problem solve.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my whole kind of theme in terms of the sales coaching that I do is that we're not salespeople, we're problem solvers. That's what we do is solve a problem if we can. If
Yep.
we can't, we refer out to somebody else. So what type of like really cool like benefits have come by for you personally for having a heart-led business versus just focusing on, making a profit?
Yeah, I literally had a client just reach out to me a couple weeks ago, and we had worked together with her husband for 6 months. They were wanting to get pregnant with their second baby, had complications with their first, and we worked really hard. They went all in. We did, a significant amount of testing. Like I laid out a program for them, and they did great. And she, at the end of that program, had a miscarriage and, was pretty down. And I just kind of told her, I'm like, you have the foundation in place. Don't give up. It's been a year since I've heard from her.
Oh,
And I was wondering, what's going on with them. And lo and behold, a message showed up in my inbox from her that they had their second baby. The
oh,
baby was literally just born in May. She
wow.
was so grateful that I gave them the tools and the coaching for a healthier family and for them to have better health. And that is what keeps me going. We're contributing to a lifelong legacy for people. I mean, it's about that longer vision. My husband doesn't necessarily get that with the vision because he's not a visionary and I'm a visionary. And I try to explain it to him. And I know not everybody understands that. But, and like another case was like a local golf coach that came to me, had diabetes and was really struggling. And so we worked together for a whole year and we literally were well on our way to reversing his diabetes. And he goes to his doctor and he's like, well, that medication that I gave you is working. And he was like, I'm not taking the medication. I actually lost weight. I worked with a holistic professional and I've put habits in place that are going to promote health for me.
Yeah, no, that's so rewarding. I'd almost say that it's worth as much as the monetary. Yeah, I think it's probably worth more than the monetary reward as well. But you can't have those stories unless you're okay with making a profit. Because at the end of the day, if we're not making a profit, we're not going to be around, be able to help people and get those stories. Yeah, cool. Nice. Well, Mandy, we're getting to about that time to wrap up here. I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. But how can people learn a little bit more about your practice and potentially work with you?
Yeah, Tom, absolutely. I'm grateful that you allowed me to come on. And I know when we first met, I felt like we were kindred spirits and we just connected in that way. So thank you for allowing me to come on and speak. But people can find me in a couple different places online. So my website is mandypatterson.com. And then my couples group coaching fertility program is positivityfertility.com. And I'm out on social media. I'm on Instagram as Dr. Mandy Patterson, Dr. Mandy Patterson, Facebook, Mandy Patterson, functional medicine practitioner. I'm actually on TikTok as the Gutsy Fertility Podcast because I actually do run a podcast as well called Gutsy Fertility Podcast.
What a great name.
Definitely my son inspired that just with all of his gut issues over the years. And it was like, Gutsy is who I am. And it just fits perfectly.
That's great. Well, cool. Well, Mandy, with us today and sharing your wisdom and sharing your stories of being a heart-led business owner and all the great things that come along with having that business. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom.
And thank you, listeners, for watching and listening to the show today. I certainly appreciate it. I know Mandy certainly appreciates it as well. And all of her links and social media and websites and all that will be linked up into the show notes. So please make sure you're checking that out. Go see what Mandy's all about and her heart-led hustle. And I know our guests really love it when listeners can connect with them either on social media or through email. So please do that. And also, my little ask for you guys is if you could do me a solid favor and give the show a rating and review on your podcast player of choice, whether that be Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. It really helps spread the word about the Heart-Led Business Show and all the great entrepreneurs that are leading with their heart and putting people first. And until next time, lead with your heart.
You've been listening to the Heart-Led Business Show, hosted by Tom Jacobs. Join us next time for another inspiring journey into the heart of business.